just because I know we're in many ways speaking together now, we're speaking to a lot of people who really have invested or really love the inner workings of string quartets. What would you feel like some of those differences were? I mean, sometimes there's players that feel very much that a tempo has to be rather strict, and sometimes there are players that feel that it really has to be flexible, and sometimes people are really in love with dynamic contrast and enormous sforzandos, and others feel that they need to be. So I have a feeling when that those are the kind of lines where people have different. That maybe those are some of the kinds of things that are the different backgrounds. But I'm just curious, when you kind of think of a spectrum of those things, like what are the things you remember being?
Well, it was interesting to do specifically with the Beethoven quartets. That was really interesting because I had listened to the Juilliard quartet play those, and also. At that time, they later changed, actually, in this way. They were playing much closer to the metronome markings of those quartets than they wound up doing. But I was influenced by, and the New Music Quartet also did, whereas the Budapest Quartet was much more free in terms of how they perceived those, so much so that later when we were at the University of Buffalo and playing all the Beethoven quartets that we would play often for Mrs. Schneider. And one time we played something that was faster than he had done. And he said, if you try to play the metronome markings of the Beethoven quartet, you'll have a caricature of them. and so... Anyway, so that was one difference that I remember specifically when we were working on Beethoven Opus 18 number 6. We started far, far apart with that movement, the first movement of that, which is written, of course. Einstein, you probably had maybe similar thing, but terribly, I think 80 to the bar or something like that. And I wanted to get closer to that. And other people in the quartet wanted to get even below what the Budapest Quartet was doing. So we had to. One thing that was very good about the quartet, even though we would discuss and argue at times, was that people were willing to compromise on these things. And so we wound up, I think, maybe around 126, 132 or something to the.
Well, and I mean, that's, I suppose, I'm sure people who are forming quartets and working as young quartets, or even for a while, is the reputation of quartets for being volatile, as when they get into arguments, is really because you're getting next to things that people hold so close. And so it becomes a more charged environment.
Of course, and it does. And what I found also was that the more beautiful something was everybody felt the strongest. And so that this was interesting to work those types of things out. And I thought, in a way, that, what a pity that it's so beautiful and we have such discussions and arguments about it. But that's part of the process of learning things.
I suppose, and I certainly feel this way, that string quartets are one of the few human organizations that it's both a privilege and a curse that they have to work out these things in a way that is very deeply... remains very deeply felt for everyone that's involved, but also really taxes every intelligence they have as far as how to consolidate different information from different sources and people and understand the differences people feel.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that everybody had was a lot of respect for each other, and we didn't think of the quartet as having maybe particularly one leader, but of course everybody working together. And so that what we found, in a way, I think the most useful in terms of trying to work these things out was if we could amalgamate ideas. In other words, if somebody had one idea and it was radically different, if there was a portion of the idea that could be retained, then that was very, very, very good. We try not, as much as possible, not to throw somebody's idea out the window. And also, we tried, although we didn't always succeed as people. We were human beings.
Yes.
To not, when somebody had an idea, not to say before they even tried the idea, "Oh, I can't."
Right. Yes,
it's no good, or another. That I just can't do that, or something like that. So this is.
I think sometimes quartet members can identify that it's a valuable but real challenge to just really open one's mind to all the possibilities.
Yeah, and this is of course challenging, but at the same time, a wonderful thing. And we tried to. The other thing that helped us with this kind of conflicting thing was humor. Peter Self was particularly good with this, but if we could somehow get that into it, it was very valuable to us, because it took a lot of the tension out of it.